Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome back to another Sunday. I am so glad you guys are here with us today. Okay, we are still on our series learning about miracles, and we've got a great miracle today that we're going to talk about. It's about fishing. So anyone out there who loves fishing, we're going to talk about fishing today. But before we do that, you know what you need to do. Let's stand up. We're going to worship, and we'll meet right back here afterwards.
Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God, and He holds us in His hands. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God, and He holds us in His hands. He is higher than a skyscraper, and He's deeper than a submarine. He is wider than the universe and beyond my wildest dreams. And He's known me and He's loved me since before the world began. How wonderful to be a part of God's amazing plan. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God, and He holds us in His hands. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God, and He holds us in His hands. He's higher than a skyscraper and deeper than a submarine. He's wider than the universe and beyond my wildest dreams. And He's known me and He's loved me since before the world began. How wonderful to be a part of God's amazing plan. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God, and He holds us in His hands. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God, and He holds us in His hands. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God. Our God is a great big God, and He holds us in His hands. 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 And He holds us in His hands.
I raise a hallelujah in the presence of my enemies. I raise a hallelujah louder than the unbelief. I raise a hallelujah. My weapon is a melody. I raise a hallelujah. Heaven comes to fight for me. I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar up from the
All right, boys and girls, that worship was so good. Thank you for worshiping with me. Listen, have any of you guys ever been fishing? Did you catch a fish? Fishing is kind of fun. I kind of like fishing. My kids like fishing. I don't know. It's all right. But boys and girls, today we're going to talk about some fishermen. Okay? They're out on a lake. They've been there all night. And guess how many fish they caught? 0. They didn't catch any fish all night. And they're going to go back to the shore. And guess who they're going to meet there? Jesus. You're right. So I want you to watch this video and I want you to see what happens. But the big part about this miracle is what Jesus says to them at the end. Boys and girls, we're going to watch this video and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it afterwards.
Hello everyone, it's Aunt Fernita. The title of today's story is Going Fishing. The memory verse is from Matthew chapter 4, verse 19. It says, "Come, follow me," Jesus said, "and I will make you fishers of men." The message is I follow Jesus and share him with others. Have you ever caught a fish or watched anyone fishing? A long time ago, men learned a new way to fish. The lake was rising over the hills east of Lake Gennesaret. Peter and his brother Andrew had fished all night without catching a thing. "Let's go," Peter said. They pulled up their nets and headed for the shore. As the people crowded closer and closer, Jesus stepped into Peter's boat and asked him to pull out into the water. He sat in the boat and continued to talk to the crowd of people on the shore. He told them that they could be in God's kingdom if they believed in him. When he finished speaking, Jesus turned to Peter and said, "Let's go out and catch some fish." Andrew was puzzled. The sun was high overhead. Nobody fished in the heat of the day. Why? Because the fish were far below the surface in the cool, deep waters of the lake. "We've worked all night without catching a thing," Peter said. "But because you say so, I will let down the nets." Peter and Andrew threw their big net far from the boat. It was suddenly full of fish. The net was so heavy with fish that the boat began to tip over. "Help us!" Peter cried to James and John in their nearby boat. "We're sinking!" James and John hurried to help them. Hauling that heavy net was hard work. James and John took part of the fish into their own boat. Both boats were so full that they barely made it back to shore without sinking. "If you follow me," Jesus said, "you will fish for men." Jesus meant that they would tell people about him. The 4 fishermen looked at their boats. They had never before caught so many fish at one time. Truly, this was a miracle, and the man who had made it happen wanted them to follow him. Peter remembered the people who had followed Jesus to the lakeshore. He thought of his nets, so full that his boat had almost sunk. He probably thought of all the money he could earn. But he decided to follow Jesus. So did Andrew, James, and John. They walked away from the biggest catch they had ever seen. They left everything behind and put Jesus first in their lives. As long as they lived, they told many people about him. We too can follow Jesus when we put him first and tell others about him. He will lead us to those who need to know about him, and he will help us to be fishers of men.
This podcast is read by Franita Buddy for Gracelink.net. Created and produced by Falvo Fowler. Post-produced by Faith Toe at Studio El Piso. The theme music is by Clayton Kinney. Animation and artwork by Giogo Godoy. The audio engineer was Karel Holness. For more information, please visit gracelink.net.
All right, boys and girls, what did you think? So let's recap. They're on the boat, right? All night long. And they catch how many fish? 0. And so they're like, oh yeah, let's go back in. They get their nets up and they start their boats back into shore. And who's there? Jesus, right? And he eventually gets on their boat and starts talking to all the people while he's on the boat. And now it's daytime, right? And the sun is high in the sky and it's hot. And Jesus says, hey, let's go fishing. And they're like, what? People don't fish during the day. It's too hot. All the fish are way down underwater, right? But they said, okay, we'll go. And what happened? Boys and girls, they caught so many fish that their boat was about to sink. They had to give some fish to the other boat so that their boat didn't sink. Think about that. It's not even the right time to fish during the day. They have fished all night. They haven't caught anything. But who's there? Jesus. And they bring in this big haul. Boys and girls, that is how, when you're fishermen, that's how you make money, right? So all these fish to them, it's like a lot of money and food for their family and that sort of thing for them, right? And what do? Do they go and get rich? Are they like, hey, thanks, Jesus. We'll see you later. We're going to go get rich now and sell all our fish? No, because Jesus says, follow me and I will make you a fisher of men, right? He wants them to catch people now and tell people about Jesus. And did they do that? You guys, they did. They left the biggest catch of their lives, a catch so big that it would have sunk the ship, their boat, right? Almost sunk 2 boats. And they left it and followed Jesus. What does that tell us about our life? Boys and girls, Jesus wants us to leave the things of this world and follow him. Every decision we do, we look to Jesus. We follow Jesus. If Jesus says, hey, don't do that, he says to us, you shouldn't lie. Boys and girls, then you shouldn't lie, right? He says, oh, you should obey your parents. Then we need to obey our parents. No matter what we want in this world, Jesus' way is better. He wants us to follow him through everything, all the time. Boys and girls, I want you to remember that this week. I want you just to picture the big pile of fish that was left on that boat, which means food for those guys' families and money, and they left that to follow Jesus. That's what I want you to think of this week. Following Jesus through everything that we do. We have got a great craft for you guys this week. And this week you are going to be catching little fish or making a little craft that looks like you caught fish. And I want you to remember to follow Jesus. And I also want you to remember that Jesus wants us to be fishers of men and to tell our friends about Jesus. Boys and girls, I'll see you back here next week for another miracle.